Be wary of the Dutchman, wary of the mighty king. Be wary of their spells, beware of king and ghosts. Be wary of the Dutchman, wary of the mighty king, wary of these old geezers.
Well, here we are. It's been a very hectic and eventful 26 days of September, but we are finally here. A couple days later than expected. I was supposed to be done with this by the 24th, but just a lot of stuff's been happening, so it's been kind of hard for me to keep on schedule. However, the good news is that once this video is up, all I have to do after that is get the Songs of a Sponge album released, and that's usually a pretty easy thing. But as for SpongeBob Month 8, we have reached the end. And I just want to say right up front before we begin this video, huge thank you to all of you for watching all these videos and making this yet again another very successful month of SpongeBob. And it continues to amaze me how, despite everything that I've reviewed, from Dragon Ball, to Drake and Josh, to Danny Phantom, like, out of all that, it's still SpongeBob that brings the most of you here. And I have no problem with it, of course, it's still one of my favorite shows of all time, but it's still just surprising to me. But with all that said, I'm eternally grateful for everything you guys have given to me. I am eternally grateful to SpongeBob as a whole for giving me this launch pad into semi-virality, I guess. I don't really know what to call it. And I can't thank all of you enough for subscribing, liking the videos, leaving feedback. Your support means the world to me, and it's the #1 thing that keeps this channel going. So, thank you guys so much. This review is for you. I hope you enjoy. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station, your #1 station for anything and everything animation, including a sponge that lives in a pineapple under the sea, as well as TV and movies. I am your host, Jackson Small. Welcome to the finale of our final SpongeBob month of 2025. However, it's not the last time we're talking about SpongeBob, because, you know, we still have one more movie coming in December, not to mention Titans of the Tide in November. So, we still have a good bit of SpongeBob to talk about, but episode, full month, theme month-wise, this is the last of this year. So, let's go out with a bang, and let's go out with the highest note possible, because we are talking about one of the best specials in the entire franchise. And I would argue that this one is so good that it's almost as incredible as a pre-movie SpongeBob episode. Yes, I am not saying that to be sarcastic, I'm saying that to be honest. Hello Bikini Bottom is a spectacular special. Not perfect, but a spectacular special. So, we have a lot to talk about, and we're going to do the same thing we've been doing for the past few specials and go through the entire synopsis and story. And then, I'll talk about my overall thoughts, highlights, you know the whole deal by now. So, without further ado or delay, as I just now remember to turn on my Do Not Disturb, I apologize, that's my fault. Welcome to Hello Bikini Bottom. Here is the full plot synopsis. I hope you guys enjoy. Starting with Act 1. The episode starts with Squidward deciding to play his clarinet. SpongeBob overhears him and decides to join him by playing his ukulele. They both play back and forth until Squidward blows his clarinet out of his mouth, and then tells SpongeBob that he will never play with him. A stylish fish then claps for them, liking SpongeBob and Squidward's performances. Squidward asks who the fish is, and the fish introduces himself as Colonel Carper. Colonel says he wants to be SpongeBob and Squidward's band manager and that they will make a lot of money. And he immediately breaks into song, and it's High Tide Time. That's literally the name of the song, and it is one of the most Broadway but catchy things that I have heard out of this series. It's a very enjoyable song. However, Mr. Krabs overhears about money being involved and forcefully makes himself SpongeBob and Squidward's manager. He even manages to steal tips from Carper on what a band needs: a tour bus, a venue, sound equipment, and roadies. Mr. Krabs then steals Mrs. Puff's busmobile and drives back to the Krusty Krab. Then he takes off his speaker, checking off both having a tour bus and sound equipment. Just Mr. Krabs being Mr. Krabs. This is entirely in character. And it's not like flanderized modern character. It's actually somewhat a genuine pre-movie character in a way. At the moment, all he needs is a roadie, in which he sees Patrick entering the Krusty Krab holding a boat and makes him the roadie. Because of course he does. Mr. Krabs, Squidward, SpongeBob, and Patrick all travel to a building that hosts the appearance of Ned and the Needlefish. First time we've seen them since Wigstruck from Season 5. Mr. Krabs meets up with Colonel Carper again, and Carper explains how much better he's doing. He then blasts on Mr. Krabs for having poor sound equipment and a roadie. He also manages to even blow up Mr. Krabs' sound equipment by telling him his service will be free. The way that he tricks him is so funny. We'll talk about it in highlights, but it's so funny. In the next scene, when Squidward is playing his clarinet on the microphone, Mr. Krabs' sound equipment explodes. Carper then breaks out laughing, not knowing Mr. Krabs was stealing his sound equipment from behind him. It's a back and forth between these two the entire episode, and it's so much fun to watch. Mr. Krabs then drives the gang to their first gig, a supermarket. Squidward complains about the place they are playing at and demands Mr. Krabs takes them back to the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krabs says it is impossible because he sold the Krusty Krab to a pawn shop, much to SpongeBob's dismay, and much to the dismay of the audience. Because I think that's the first time he's ever actually done that, like outright sold the Krusty Krab. He then runs home going to get his money. Squidward and SpongeBob finally begin to play at the supermarket, and all the other customers even start using food items to play along with the beat as well. Once Squidward and SpongeBob stop playing, all the customers leave, which Squidward dislikes. The super manager then bills Mr. Krabs for playing at his supermarket. Mr. Krabs then takes the gang to the Shady Lanes Assisted Living Facility retirement home, and he manages to convince Squidward to play there. However, every time SpongeBob and Squidward try to play, an elderly fish keeps yelling, "Too loud!" even if SpongeBob and Squidward are not playing at all. Yeah, I know, it's an overplayed old people joke, but here they actually use it really well. It's surprisingly funny. The next gig ends up at a child's birthday party, and the act finishes after the gig ended soon when a kid playing a game sticks Squidward. Because he was playing Pin the Tail on the seahorse, and he pinned the tail right in Squidward's rear end. This episode is funny, bro. Like, so many of the jokes and gags here are genuinely hilarious. And again, some of it feels like pre-movie in a way. Act 2 then begins as Mr. Krabs drives to their next destination. Squidward says that if the next gig is anything like the others, he's going to quit. When Mr. Krabs stops at the electronics warehouse, Squidward attempts to get off the bus. But Mr. Krabs then slams the door in their face, saying it's not the next gig. Mr. Krabs, SpongeBob, and Squidward all look towards a large crowd heading towards a stadium, and Mr. Krabs says that is their next gig, which says Ned and the Needlefish today. Mr. Krabs then drops off SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick and goes back to the next town sign and starts to do work on it. It turns out that he makes it redirect Ned and the Needlefish to the electronics outhouse, to which the band drives to, with Ned thinking that they really have gone downhill. Funny little meta joke. Meanwhile, SpongeBob and Squidward are preparing to perform for the crowd. The curtains open up and the entire crowd is cheering. However, Squidward notices that they're actually chanting for Ned and the Needlefish. But SpongeBob thinks that the crowd is cheering for them instead, because of course he does. It's SpongeBob, he's always the optimist. As the lights turn on, the crowd notices that they are not Ned and the Needlefish, for obvious reasons. Squidward says that they know what they came for, and he and SpongeBob start playing, but the crowd, with Harold giving them the signal, begins to chase them off the stage. As the duo are being chased away, Ned and the Needlefish are performing at the electronics outhouse. Bert asks Ned about something, but Ned tells him that one of his band members should help him instead. Back at the stadium, Colonel Carper returns and he's furious at Mr. Krabs for stealing his sound equipment and for driving Ned and the Needlefish off course. In his own words, "Your shenanigans, sir, are at an end." Again, great humor. Carper then tells Mr. Krabs that he is suing him for everything he's got and has his roadies take back his sound equipment and even paint losers on Mr. Krabs' tour bus. Mr. Krabs is highly depressed as he drives off again, with Squidward saying things have gotten worse. Mr. Krabs breaks down in tears and ends up driving off a cliff, with the bus tumbling many times but somehow only suffering a flat tire. You know, Looney Tune cartoon logic. Mr. Krabs then asks for Patrick to put up the spare, but Patrick ended up eating it, which Squidward actually guessed correctly was going to happen. SpongeBob then pulls out a small bag of tires, telling Patrick he would have given him one. Squidward gets fed up with everything, not even caring that Mr. Krabs goes broke, and decides to walk off, but walks right into the series of cacti that are along the way. SpongeBob tries to convince Squidward to stay, but he will not budge and walks off into the sunset. A parody of when usual band members split off in real life. SpongeBob then starts to sing the Never Giving Up song, and eventually Squidward turns back around, and he and SpongeBob play for the final time on top of the tour bus in an absolutely beautiful moment. They notice a crowd cheering with Mr. Krabs in shock. However, Patrick ruins the moment when he says that they're only cheering for a rare meteor shower that's going on in the background. Mr. Krabs then sets up an admission stand to have people pay to see the meteor shower and make all his money back. Unfortunately for Mr. Krabs, there is a long line of fish waiting to get paid back from him for all the trouble he caused, including Mrs. Puff, the supermarket manager, and Colonel Carper. Carper then asks for the rest of Mr. Krabs' money for using his equipment, causing him to lose all the profits from the Needlefish show, damages to his property, and the rest just because he wants it. Mr. Krabs of course refuses. Carper then has his roadies dump all Mr. Krabs' money into his pants, and then drops him onto the ground. Mr. Krabs, along with SpongeBob, is outside the pawn shop and is sad that he will never get his Krusty Krab back. Fortunately for him, SpongeBob offers Mr. Krabs a piggy bank of Gary's college fund. You make sense of that one, which he grabs without hesitation as he buys back the Krusty Krab and puts it on a boat. Mr. Krabs drives off with SpongeBob. Plankton arrives shortly after with a wagon of money because earlier he saw in the cutaway gag that the Krusty Krab was in the pawn shop, and he wanted to buy it. So he came back later with a wagon of money and wanting to buy the Krusty Krab. However, the pawn shop owner tells Plankton that he just sold it, but has a taco stand instead. Plankton looks on with a shocked look on his face, ending the episode. Such an awesome freaking episode, man. Like, not only is it a hilarious parody of real-life bands and real-life concerts, but they also do a great job utilizing it as a musical, which it kind of feels like it's their apology for the abysmal trash fire that is Atlanta SquarePantis, but even if it's not, it's one of SpongeBob's better musicals, and honestly one of, if not their best musical. Like, the songs are all great, none of them are cringe, they fit in the plot well, the plot itself is very entertaining and fun, and the jokes are just, they're so funny in this one. The jokes alone carry this episode, in my opinion. Alright, now let's move on to some production and some trivia. The episode was put in production during 2011, and the song High Tide Time was recorded on May 25th of 2011. During a tour of Rough Draft Korea for students of Yongsan International School of Siu in 2016, various SpongeBob color background books were discovered for many episode segments, and one of the books found was created for the first half of Hello Bikini Bottom, confirming that it was shipped to Korea on March 23rd, 2012. Production on this episode was completed on August 3rd of 2012, and it made its premiere on October 8th of 2012 in the States. And now if we go on to trivia, I'm sure there's a lot of trivia about this one. And all its releases. So, complete 8th season SpongeBob on Tour DVD, the 7th and 8th seasons 2-pack, the SpongeBob SquarePants collection, the SpongeBob SquarePants 8th season DVD collection, exclusive to Germany and Australia, next 100 episodes, best 200 episodes ever, best 300 episodes ever, and a digital release as SpongeBob episode volume 14. Alright, there's a good bit of trivia with this one, so let's talk about it. Advertisements for this episode referred to it as SpongeBob SquarePants on Tour. The episode was also originally going to be titled SpongeBob on Tour, and the SpongeBob on Tour DVD release still refers to it by this title. A bit weird that they changed it to Hello Bikini Bottom, but honestly I think it kind of works better, as SpongeBob on Tour is a bit of a bland title if you really look at it. Mrs. Puff is shown to be a good engineer in this episode, as she does her own maintenance for her school field trip bus. The font on Mrs. Puff's bus is the same as the one found on the complete fourth season DVDs. Nice little nod. And SpongeBob and Squidward have been in bands before, obviously in Band Geeks from Season 2 and Krabby Road from Season 7. Frames from this episode were later used in Friendiversary when SpongeBob remembers Squidward. That's cute. There's an online game of the same name based on the episode, because of course there is. It was all the rage, these online games in the 2010s. This is the second episode where Squidward plays his clarinet with SpongeBob while playing his ukulele at the same time. The first was a terrible episode that should not be named because I don't want to get angry again. This is the last episode for several things. In packaging order, the last episode of the SpongeBob SquarePants franchise to be fully produced in 480i standard definition full screen. The next episode, Extreme Spots and onward, will be in 1080 widescreen HD. While not being the last in the production order, this was the final SD episode shipped to Rough Draft Studios Korea in early March 2012. So in other words, this is the last episode that's in that 4:3 aspect ratio. After that, it is 1080 full widescreen, because this is when the animation started getting an upgrade going into Season 9, and an even bigger upgrade going into the second half of Season 9 after Sponge Out of Water came out. The episode's production was finished after a few Season 9 episodes had finished production, as well as after the season had already premiered. The last episode, written and storyboarded, directed by Aaron Springer in packaging order. Because after Aaron Springer did this, he then left the SpongeBob crew and went to work on another highly acclaimed series. That series being Gravity Falls. Yeah, the more you know, huh? I bet none of you even knew that one. So yeah, Aaron left this SpongeBob crew after Hello Bikini Bottom. This was his final episode. And then he went on to work with Disney, and he ended up becoming a writer and storyboard artist for Gravity Falls, which many people consider one of the best cartoons ever made. So, yeah. Oh, also another fun fact about Aaron Springer, that during his time working on mid-season SpongeBob, or sometime before that, it was somewhere around the time, he was also working and writing for Samurai Jack for Cartoon Network. So he's worked with Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and Disney. Wrap your head around that. In packaging order, the last episode written and storyboard directed by Sean Tremont, before he went to work at DreamWorks Animation. The last episode where Stephen Banks is credited as a story editor, as I think he also left after this. The last episode written by Danny McAuley until he briefly came back to write the Season 10 episode Lost and Found. This is Andrew Overtomb's final episode as animation director until the Season 12 episode Gary and Spot. The song High Tide Time is longer than the entirety of the episode's Reef Blower and a Skin Wrinkle in Time. The episode was aired alongside various specials from SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents, leading up to the Nickelodeon movie 100 Things to Do Before High School, which will later become a series. I've never heard of it, so that's news to me. Now we got some dub facts. During the original German airing, the title card was never shown until the following day, and the German title card for this episode does not have an exclamation point, unlike the English version, and it's called Hallo Bikini Bottom. The E in hello was changed to an A so it could spell the German salute, hallo. In the Japanese dub, this was the last time Rokuro Naya voiced Squidward, as he would end up passing away sadly on November 17th of 2014, 8 months after this episode premiered in Japan. Rest in peace. Cultural references. Colonel Carper's name is a parody of Colonel Parker, who was Elvis Presley's manager. Carper also wears a suit similar to the ones that Elvis wore. When Colonel Carper says, let me think about that for a second. The Thinker by Auguste Rodin appears in a mirror. The Thinker is also referenced in The Masterpiece, The Googly Artist, and in Security Guards. Electric's Outhouse is a parody of Radio Shack. And when SpongeBob pulls out a bag of tire snacks, the tire says Good Boat, being a parody of Good Year. And now for some funny animation errors. SpongeBob throws his ukulele down in the beginning of the first song, but when the camera zooms out, the ukulele's nowhere to be found. Rhodey is checked off on the list despite Mr. Krabs not having one yet, and the list is then properly unchecked later. When Mr. Krabs points his pencil at his clipboard checklist and says he needs a Rhodey, the box is already checked. Okay, we already went over that one, sorry. When Incident 46 plays a bread loaf like an accordion, her bikini top is missing. That's a big oops. When the bus falls off the cliffs, it is still daytime, but in the next shot, it is nighttime. After SpongeBob finishes singing Never Give Up, he suddenly has his pants back on despite ripping them off during the song. Oops. And then, the episode's numerous names, and I'm going to use the English translation of these because I can't speak in these languages. Bob and Squidward on tour in French, Hello Bikini Bottom in German, or Hallo Bikini Bottom in German. Hey Bikini Bottom in Hungarian, Hello Bikini Bottom in Italian, I Want to Be a Superstar in Mandarin or Taiwan, Hello Bikini Bottom in Russia, Hello Bikini Bottom in Spanish in Latin America, and SpongeBob Goes on Tour in Spanish in Spain. And that's all the facts. There was a lot there. Like, there was so many facts. It was genuinely interesting. Also, I think this is the last episode that was using cell animation. So that's also a really interesting thing. Okay, so we went over the synopsis, we went over facts, we went over hilarious animation errors. And it is currently over 20 minutes in. Almost as long as the episode itself, jeez. Let's fly through our highlights now, shall we? Alright, so highlight number 1, the High Tide Time song. I really wanted to do a cover of this one right before I did this review, but unfortunately I ran out of time. But I promise you, when I do a second Songs of a Sponge album for the mid-season stuff, I promise you it will be included in there. Oh, also, fun fact, Andy Samberg is the voice of Colonel Carper, so that's another celebrity guest. Highlight 2, Krabs getting tricked into having all his recording equipment exploding. Like, that is funny. Not only is it Mr. Krabs being arrogant, but it's also Carper taking advantage of his arrogance and his blindness to money by saying, oh, that'll be free. Like, it's genuinely funny. It is so funny. Highlight 3, Krabs reveals he sold the Krusty Krab to pay for the tour. That is a genuinely surprising moment. It really goes to show you that he is putting all his chips in the middle, so to speak. SpongeBob and Squidward at the supermarket. Not only because the song that they play is pleasant, but also because of the hilarious interactions of all the fish around them. Especially the one guy that starts playing a pretzel, like a flute, and then just puts it in his cart and keeps walking like nothing happened. Oh, that's funny. Then Krabs sending Ned and the Needlefish the wrong direction. Genuinely really good plan on his part. The Never Giving Up song, really, really good song, and it wraps up the episode beautifully. The Get Paid Back from Mr. Krabs line. A great way to give him karma for his actions throughout the episode. And then ends on a really sweet note with SpongeBob helping Krabs buy back the Krusty Krab. That's just a really sweet moment that, again, feels like honest pre-movie SpongeBob, not mid-season annoying flanderized dumb SpongeBob. Alright, and that is literally everything I can talk about with this episode. If you can't already tell, I love this episode for numerous reasons. Not only because it's a great parody of bands and tours, and it uses the musical aspects so much better than Atlanta Square Panis, but it's also because it has a good story. The characters are all fantastic throughout, especially Colonel Carper. He's one of the best one-shot celebrity guest characters in all of SpongeBob. The songs are great, the pacing is excellent, and it ends on a really nice note. So, yeah, Aaron Springer definitely left the series on a high note before he went to work on Gravity Falls, because this is some of his best work and some of his best writing. And it is the end of Season 8, the last of the dark ages of SpongeBob. So not only did Aaron get to go out on a high note, we get to end the darkest era of SpongeBob on a high note. It's amazing how it all just comes full circle, doesn't it? So, with all that said and done, my final verdict for Hello Bikini Bottom is a high, very well deserved, but not quite perfect 18 out of 20. And my only problem with it is the second act has a bit of a pacing issue. Because it feels like the ending is rushed a little bit. But the scene before that was a little too drawn out. But that's really my only big complaint. Outside of that, this episode's fantastic. And those who have seen it already know how great it is. Those who haven't seen it need to see it. And it is arguably one of the best episodes in mid-season SpongeBob. And it's easily one of SpongeBob's best specials. Yet again, right up there with Frozen Face-Off. It's so impressive that despite this still being technically a bad season of SpongeBob, the specials, excluding Ghoulfuls, were excellent. I freaking loved Frozen Face-Off. Hello Bikini Bottom is fantastic. And of course, It's Just SpongeBob Christmas is an absolute gem. As I will go on and on about at length in December. Because, like I said before, I am not reviewing Christmas episodes when we are this close to spooky season. I will not let the holidays try to ruin my favorite time of year, no matter how much Walmart tries. So, yeah, with that concludes Hello Bikini Bottom. It's an awesome special. Absolutely check it out if you haven't already. And it definitely ends this dark era on a high note. And with that's another era of SpongeBob closed. And that is another season of the series completely covered from top to bottom. Yeah, it wasn't a great season, but compared to season 7, it was more of average episodes rather than terrible. There were terrible episodes in there, but it didn't encompass a grand majority of the season. So, yeah. But this is the last of the 4:3 ratio. This is the last of the dark era of SpongeBob, and it's the last of SpongeBob as we know it before they started modernizing things to fit current times. So, yeah, it's a season that represents the ending of a lot while also being the dawn of something new. I know, it sounds weird for me to get all philosophical in a SpongeBob video, but that's just the honest truth. So, yep. That is 8 seasons of SpongeBob fully reviewed for you. With the exception of, obviously, the Christmas specials, but we'll talk about those when December comes around. But for now, that is going to do it for this 8th SpongeBob month. And with that, we are officially out of the Dark Ages. Celebration! We are free from the worst of this hell. We are out of Davy Jones' locker. And starting in 2026, we get to start one of the most interesting, turbulent, and wild seasons in all of SpongeBob. And this is when the Big Sponge started to make his big comeback, because this was the season that literally got cut in half for a movie. This is the season that got cut in half, and then had a second half with its original creator returning. So, we can now say goodbye to the dark era of SpongeBob. We are done with it and never have to talk about it again. And now we can move on to more fascinating ventures. Or at least we can in 2026, because like I said, this is the last SpongeBob month for this year. Not the last time we're talking about SpongeBob, because we still have Titans of the Tide and the 4th SpongeBob movie coming out. So we still have a lot of SpongeBob to talk about, but season episode review wise, this is the last of the year. So in 2026, we're going to go through a very interesting season. The season that began the SpongeBob's biggest renaissance, that then led into some of his best moments since the golden era. So, I'll see you guys next time for the turbulent and very, very up and down Season 9 of SpongeBob SquarePants. So all we have left now is 9, 10, 11, and 12, and 13 and 14. And I already asked you guys in the poll what you wanted me to do, if you wanted me to keep doing it as 2 months per year, or if you wanted me to do like a full year in 2026 covering everything. You guys voted to keep doing 2 a year. So that's the way we're going to keep doing it going forward. So I'll see you guys in 2026 for Season 9. But for those of you in 2025 right now that aren't watching this video in the future, we have some other very interesting prospects to go over. Because next month is October. Yes, it is time for another 31 Days of Horror and the end of the Castlevania-thon. So that's what's coming next. We have Castlevania-thon 2 and another 31 Days of Horror, but a very, very exciting one. Because we're not just going to be reviewing any horror movies, we're going to be reviewing some of the first horror movies ever made. Yes, I am super excited to announce this. This 31 Days of Horror, we will be taking a look through the entire catalog of the classic Universal monsters from the 1940s all the way through the 1950s and 60s. All those movies, excluding the first Wolfman, because we covered that back in January when the new one was coming out, so excluding the first Wolfman, we're going to knock out all of them. And I technically already reviewed the original Dracula on my other channel, but that video has aged very poorly. Not to mention with these new reviews, I want to be more constructive and very very informative. Like, you know how James Rolfe of Cinemassacre has his Cinemassacre's Monster Madness, and how he had his history of horror for his very first one, and he talked about all like background stuff and extra info and trivia. That's what we're gonna do. We're going full into the Universal monsters in October. We're gonna take a look at every single one of them. We're gonna take a look at all the background info that went into every single one of them, from the director, to the actors, to the story, to the writing, to how it all came to be in the first place. It's going to be a really fun time, and as a huge horror historian who is a massive fan of these classic 30s and 40s movies, I am so excited to dedicate a whole month to talk about them. So, yep, that's the plan going forward for 2025, but if you're watching this in the future in 2026, well, I'll see you for Season 9 of SpongeBob. But until we meet again, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this almost every single day. Feel free to hit the hype button as it helps this video get up higher in the algorithm, from what I can decipher. And until we meet again, stay spongy. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you next time. Also, thank you for 1,200 subscribers. You guys are awesome. See you in 2026 for SpongeBob Month Season 9, or see you next month for 31 Days of Horror and Castlevania Season 4.
King.